Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of This Week in Mappercraft. This past week was April 5th to April 11th, and we'll be covering the years of 2015, 2016, 2020, and 2021. As always, all information here can be found on the Mappercraft wiki, which is linked in the description, along with the server itself. And let's get to the years. In 2015, the server was running Panegia World by Monsoon Jr. In 2016, the server was running Panegia World Revived, also under Monsoon Jr. 2020, the server was running Solace World 2 under Solace. And in 2021, the server was running VMJ World under Multi, and also Jenny this week. Let's get started. First up, we have April 5th to April 7th, 2015 during Panegia World. On the 5th, player data was wiped, unfortunately, again from everyone. An unfortunately frequent occurrence in the early days of the server. Here's the quote, which explains that the quote-unquote Great Creeper Reaping was called that, and it wiped all player data from everyone, including the backups. Then on the 6th, possibly because of this, a record number of players were online at the same time at once. According to the quote, the number was 12, which was a lot less than our current record, which is around 50 or 60 at once, I think. Impressively, also on the 6th, despite losing all player data, FedEx installed the first beacon ever on the server. According to the quote, the effect was speed, and the beacon color was switched to yellow. Finally, on the 7th, the Cold War era began, when tensions started to escalate between the two rival alliances of the Central Powers and the Diamond Legion. According to the quote, Heridian scouts were attacked by Maricopians for trespassing in Andrantium, and later crises would bring the two factions to the brink of war. Next up, we have events from April 7th to the 11th, 2015, the back half of the week for Panegia World. First, on the 7th, a wikia was created for the world, for the server. Not particularly surprising, since the wiki stuff really inspired sort of everything on Mappercraft, and it's very connected to the Future of Europe wiki and some other wikis. According to the quote, Pesminer was the one to officially create it. Eventually we would switch over to Mirahis, and there was a couple of other wikis that were created in between there. But this first one is still up, obviously, as sort of a archive. Later, on the same day, the Stonehome Katsakali crisis began and was ended with the signing of the Nutty Treaty. It began when Zanzibar became a colony of Katsakali and was raided by Stonehome in response. According to the quote, both sides came to an agreement that Zanzibar and Pemba would become international territory and that Stonehome would repair Katsakali after the raiding. Next, on the 8th, the Estonian FedEx crisis occurred, bringing tensions between the Diamond Legion and Central Powers to the brink of war. According to the quote, it began when FedEx broke the sort of territorial integrity of Eastistan and presumably raided them. Andrantium and Maricopa were about to declare war on Herinia in defense of their ally before both sides kind of backed down and tensions cooled over the next couple of days. And finally, on the 11th, the server implemented a whitelist due to some sort of bad actors who may have been hacking, getting on the server, and apparently shutting it down. Here's the quote for that. The whitelist lasted for a good chunk of time before eventually being disabled due to probably firmer software protection for Minecraft, although it's not exactly clear. But that marks the end of the week in 2015. Next up, we have only two events from April 5th to the 11th, 2016, during the tail end of Panegia World Revived. First, on the 6th, a naval battle occurred near Scythia, a very rare occurrence across Mappercraft, as Minecraft only has the one type of boat, and war is usually pretty centered around cities. Here's the pretty limited quote about this event. And then on the 9th, admin elections began. This was something that happened occasionally in the early years of Mappercraft. Instead of actually choosing people for staff, there would be sort of a poll/election to decide who would become admins. This was obviously a bad idea. The only remaining staff member who was ever elected in this way is Sikorsky. According to the quote, the candidates were Matt, Creator, KCAP, and Kebab Master. Also, players didn't know they could vote for multiple candidates. The election would run into the next week, so we'll see who technically won then. But this was kind of a bad period in terms of staff composition due to this. But that marks the end of the week for 2016. And next up, we have a couple of very interesting events from April 5th to the 11th, 2020 during Solace World 2. First up, on the 5th, T-Gamer attempted to revolt from the Commonwealth of America as the state of Penobscot after he was kicked from the nation for harassing other citizens. According to the quote, staff ruled the war invalid, since he never actually got online to defend his claim or fight the war. Later in the week, on the 8th of April, I actually took over for T-Gamer as the representative for Penobscot in a special election. Even more than half a decade ago, I was an astute Mappercraft player. Next up, on the 6th, Chief Justice Sikorsky resigned and left the Commonwealth to take a bit of a break from the server. According to the quote, Bonito Pibb was made the Chief Speaker of the House, becoming the highest-ranking official in the country. Pibb was also the only chief speaker not to be elected, and his tenure represents sort of the shift from autocratic to democratic rule in the Commonwealth. Mudkip Blodo was chosen as the new mayor of Chicago as the sort of local politician. Then, on the 10th, the Spiv Wars broke out in Europe with the Batavian Independence War. The Angevin Empire started to collapse this day, with Binna seceding peacefully. In contrast, Spiv declared an independence war in order to secede with the province of Batavia. According to the quote, Germany came to the aid of Angevin, and they defeated Spiv, exiling him to the Kievan Rus. Despite this victory, the nation was unable to stay united, as France seceded shortly after. The remaining English provinces were eventually annexed by Quebec. Following that war, on the 11th, the Second Spiv War kicked off with the Kievan conquest of Germany. Seeking revenge for the previous war, Spiv encouraged the Kievan Rus to invade Germany. According to the quote, Austria-Hungary came to the defense of Germany, and that triggered Romania to assist Kiev against them. Many European cities were badly damaged, and Germany did lose the war. Their territory was split between France and the Kievan Rus, and the native Germans were exiled. This would eventually lead to more Spiv Wars next week, as Iberia got involved to try to fix some of the conflict on the continent, but that is a story for next week. That marks the end of this very eventful week in Solace World 2. And to close out, we have a super important week, April 5th to the 11th, 2021, the most tumultuous week in VMJ World and one of the worst weeks in the server's history, really. Because on April 5th, 2021, Multi's Folly 2 occurred, probably as I said, the worst event in server history, when the host Multi went crazy and deleted years of server history from the Discord by deleting all of the channels. He also attempted to wipe the actual Minecraft server and kicked everyone out of the Discord. As seen in the quote, this was the end of Multi's tenure as host. The incident began after the mod team was banned from sending messages in the announcements channel due to sending some memes and other sort of non-important messages. They protested as Multi had done sort of similar things, but had not been banned from sending messages in announcements. Several people were randomly demoted, and things generally escalated from there. Players logged onto the server to protest in Multi's in-game nation, and they eventually griefed it illegally. Things did manage to sort of cool down, but after some mods continued to make fun of Multi, he snapped and deleted everything. A new Discord had to be created, and Flaming's position as the sort of primary admin, developer, and sort of pseudo-owner of the server was irreparably damaged due to his sort of past support of Multi. Fortunately, not all was lost, as by the 8th of April, the world had managed to be saved, and a new host was chosen. Jenny Budu, one of the newer members of the mod team, and the J in VMJ. Here's the quote announcing the new host. Jenny's tenure wasn't particularly great. She was an erratic and inconsistent host, but when compared to Vegetable and Multi, she was undoubtedly the best host of the world. Later, on the 10th, the server would reopen with the same world. However, after a poll where more than 70% of the players voted to reset the Nether and End, the old Nether and End were not accessible. According to the quote here, many players were very vocal in complaining about this. So the staff quickly caved and restored the old Nether and End to the server. Land claims and war were not open on the 10th, however, as on the 11th, they opened up. This was mostly just due to staff still attempting to set up the new Discord after Multi deleted everything from the old one. Here's the quote for it, but that marks the end of this week in VMJ World, and we're leading into a less eventful period from this world, as in some ways this is the last big event. People weren't really as interested in playing after Multi screwed everything up and made everything much more annoying. But this marks the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and check out the server at the link in the description. As always, if you have any additional information about any of these events, leave a comment down below or go ahead and add it to the Mappercraft wiki. See you next week for April 12th to the 18th.